A huge trade sends an elite wide receiver down south. Welcome to the ADP Average Dudes podcast. I'm your average dude, Matt Mormon, and Stefon Diggs traded from the Buffalo Bills to the Houston Texans. Kind of a surprising move between contenders. I feel like you don't see that too often. Like, I don't expect the follow-up move here to be T. Higgins going to Buffalo, right? Like, you just don't see contenders in the same conference making these kinds of moves very often, right? Think of like A.J. Brown going from the AFC to the NFC. You just don't really see it happening in the same conference too often. So very interesting there with the Bills and the Texans making this move. It shakes things up quite a bit, but to me, maybe it shakes things up less so than to others. I did my wide receiver rankings last week, and I put Nico Collins at wide receiver 10, Tank Dell at 21, and Stefon Diggs actually at 25. So of the three receivers who are now in Houston, I had Stefon Diggs ranked the lowest of the three. That was back when he was in Buffalo. And that was largely because I'm very concerned that Stefon Diggs is kind of a shell of himself. He was abysmal in the second half of last year. He did not crack 90 yards from week 7 on. He went the entire second half of last season kind of being phased out of the offense. He wasn't happy about it. And at 30 years old, I have my worries when that happens to a player that they may just not have it anymore. This is very reminiscent to me of when Julio Jones was traded to the Tennessee Titans, and everyone kind of thought, oh, well, now Julio goes to a new offense, and he'll be the number one weapon, and he'll be great and awesome. This reminds me more of that than it does of the original Stefon Diggs trade, of him going from the Vikings to the Bills. This feels much more like that, and I'm very worried about that for Stefon Diggs. I'm going to update my rankings at some point in the near future, probably wait till after the NFL draft, but I expect myself to still have him be my number 3 of the Houston Texans wide receivers. I think they're all going to be a lot closer, though. I think this moves Nico from like fringe wide receiver 1 down to a high-end wide receiver 2. I think for Tank Dell and for Stefon Diggs, it probably moves them closer to wide receiver 25 for both of them, maybe even a bit lower than that. I'm excited for what this offense means, and look, one of these guys is probably going to emerge and be absolutely awesome. I'm not totally sure which one that's going to be, but we see upside in these kinds of situations, right? You want to be in on things that are very murky because usually someone emerges out of that and is really, really good. CJ Stroud, the big winner of this, right? Of course he is. He gets yet another weapon and yet another toy. I think Joe Mixon is also a big winner in this because this offense is just going to be really awesome. And that means even more opportunities for Joe Mixon to go out there, be a workhorse back, and just really just score touchdowns out the wazoo. Dalton Kincaid, though, he's probably the biggest winner of this entire situation because now his competition threat, at best, it's going to be a rookie wide receiver probably, right? Like maybe they make a move for Brandon Ayuk. That's kind of my own hopes and dreams still, is Brandon Ayuk latching onto this Buffalo Bills offense. But let's say it's not. Let's say they draft a guy with their first pick even. Well, it's a late round 1 pick. You're not looking at the big guns with Neighbors or Dunze or Marvin Harrison. You're looking at the other guys, who I do love a lot of them. But in year 1, that production probably just isn't going to be as high-end as those 3 guys. So unless Buffalo makes a big move and moves way up, which is possible, that's a possibility, I think Kincaid just looks really set here to be the target leader in this offense, or at least very close to it. And the roof is, just absolutely massive for Dalton Kincaid coming out of this trade. So like I said, I will update my rankings. I know for sure Dalton Kincaid, he's going to move up to my tight end 5. He's going to leapfrog both Pitts and Evan Ingram, who I had above him before this. CJ Stroud, he probably moves up to quarterback 5, I think. I think he probably goes to the very top of tier 2. Joe Mixon also going to rise up a little bit. Diggs and Tank Dell are going to stay roughly the same of where I had them before. Nico's going to come down a little bit. And James Cook probably going to stay right about where he's at. I just don't know how much more work he can really be given than what I was already expecting him to be given. Same kind of goes for the other wide receivers there in Buffalo, because I do expect a rookie to be brought in. That's kind of just going to take some away from guys like Curtis Samuel and Khalil Shakir. I think those guys could be sleeper winners. We'll see how the draft shakes out. I can see Buffalo drafting 2 guys, or like drafting 1 and signing an Odell Beckham or a Tyler Boyd. One of those sorts of players to kind of fill in that depth. Let me know what you guys think, though, about the Stefon Diggs trade to the Texans. Does this all of a sudden make the Texans past the Bills in your mind for AFC contendership as well in the real football world? For fantasy, where are you now ranking CJ Stroud? Now that he's got yet another weapon to play with, does he crack that top elite tier and does he join your top 4? Or are you going to put him at 5 like I am? Let me know in the comments down below. We'll see you next time.